I'm Cher Kretz, and I have been a school counselor in Southern California for the past 22 years. And then about 5 years ago, I also started a coaching business online, and I started taking on more and more clients that way. And it's been a really enriching experience. I've been teaching solution focus for about, using the solution focus approach for about 10 years, and trained by Dr. Linda Medcalf primarily. And it's been quite a journey. I'm happy to be back here. I spoke here a few years back. I think it was 2022 or 21. I had the opportunity of being here. But today we're going to talk about having better solution-focused conversations. And what I've discovered is that the solution-focused approach is so amazing when we're in therapy and when we're in counseling, but coaching conversations can pop up anytime. And you can be in the role of a leader or a parent or a counselor talking to a potential client that's coming in any given moment. There might be an opportunity for us to have a solution-focused coaching conversation, and we need to be ready to have great conversations in the moment that, if given the opportunity, will be solution-focused and we'll be able to highlight that other person and who they are. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit different way, because we're going to talk about the preparation in our mind that it takes and the mindset that we need to take on in order to accomplish this. We're going to go over some questions and stuff, but the mechanics is not as important as our attitude and our mindset. And that's honestly what rules everything about this approach, in my opinion, and what I've noticed with every person that I've trained with. And so before we get started, I wanted you to think of an attitude that you have commonly that's a good one. And we all have our bad attitudes. But an attitude that you love it when you have that attitude. You get great results. People respond well to you. You wish you had that attitude more often. And what would you call that attitude? What would you in chat? You could just put it in chat, whatever that attitude is. It might be helpful. It might be calm. It might be excited. It might be warm. Whatever that attitude is. Now, the way I define an attitude is basically just some type of emotion that shows all over your body. So you can't hide it. It's an attitude because it's an emotion. It's geared from an emotion that you personally had, and then the attitude comes on out. Warmth, yeah, open for sure. I want you to keep these attitudes in mind, because we're going to be talking more about that a little bit later. We're going to actually do a little solution-focused activity to help us be able to incorporate and give the attitude that we choose anytime, any place, in any solution-focused conversation. So that's going to be part of this at the end. So just be thinking about that. What are the attitudes that I wish that I had more often, that I wish that I could take on? And the reason why I'm going to make a little shift from talking about the nuts and bolts, if you will, like many times that we do, is because I'd like to shine a light on the fact that we pass by this too quickly. The preparation. We pass by the preparation piece sometimes, and we jump right into the conversation. And then we wonder why it might go a little bit off course. And I think that this is a valuable thing for us to be able to spend time on, simply because of that. And there was a situation that I had, my very, very first solution-focused training with Dr. Linda Medcalf, where she stopped everything and she said, the solution-focused approach is a mindset. It's not a set of rules of things that you're supposed to say and not say. And that hit me. It hit me, but at that time, being the first training I didn't quite understand it, but I knew that it was powerful. And now I think about that little moment every single time before I go into a conversation, thinking my preparation and my mindset being in the right place. Now, even though I've never forgotten that, it's not something that always comes natural for us to do this preparation that we need to do. So I am going to attempt to teach you guys everything that I've learned about preparing the mind to have a wonderful solution-focused conversation. And It won't take the place of getting in the trenches and practicing. If you're new to this approach, you still need to get in there and practice and mess up and practice again. But it will definitely help you in coaching yourself and keeping yourself accountable to how you approach conversations. And we'll be doing this together. And you'll have to let me know if I succeed. You can email me. I have my email right up here on this thing. And another thing I want to talk about right before we really dig into the nuts and bolts of this is how we take in this information right here and now as we're talking, and in every single workshop that you're in. You know, taking notes is important. Some therapists, counselors take a lot of notes, some don't take notes. But the way that solution focused folks take notes is different, isn't it? We listen with a different ear. We listen for the exceptions. We listen for the things that are going well. And we want to make an insight, not for us, but so we can allow that other person to have the insights they need to have to be able to grow. We're focused on them. We're focused on what we're so deeply focused on that conversation that almost everything will tune out. And if any of you guys were in the meeting earlier with Chris Isaac, and he was demonstrating one of the counseling ones that he had, and he was talking to a parent that had a baby sitting on her lap. And people were saying in the comment, "Oh, it's so nice that he lets kids into his meetings." And afterwards, he said, "You know what? I didn't even notice the child on her lap. I hardly even noticed when I picked up the child and I was in my lap for a while, because I was so in tune with where they were going and where their mind was and where they were moving and the questions that I could answer." And this is a skill. This is something you could tell that he is fine-tuned at it. Like when you listen to that video, you're like, "Oh my goodness, I'm listening to a master right now." But that was so telling to me, and it made me think about what we're talking about today. How shaping our mindset to be prepared for a solution-focused talk will help us stay in the moment, will help us remember the exact reason why we're even doing this at all. The reason that we have solution-focused conversation, the thing about solution conversations is it's not about being the one that's driving the car, right? If you think about an analogy of a car, it's about being the passenger and letting the other person drive. And I think about that analogy a lot. In fact, I used it in the solution focused journal that I wrote, and a lot of the I had the pleasure of doing a TED talk, and I thought up an analogy, GPS, because it really rings true to me that we need to remember. Well, I'll talk a little bit more about that later as far as my analogy, but that we need to remember that our job is to be a calm passenger, not a passenger that's a backseat driver trying to take the wheel of the car. We're trying to, as soon as we see someone make a wrong turn, we're like, no, that's not the way you're supposed to go. To me, that's like the worst, right? I don't know about you guys, but when someone takes the long way and I know a short way, I want so badly to tell them the short route, right? I'm like, oh, they just don't know. I need to inform them of the way that they need to get to this destination. But the type of passenger that's really more pleasant to be with is one that thinks they're going to get there. I trust them. They've got this. And if they need my assistance, they're going to call on me. And we're in this together. We're in this car together. We're going to get there together. We don't need to get there the way that I want to get there. And that is it. That's a hard place to stay in. All right. It's okay if you're the type of person where sometimes you seem to slip out of that still in a conversation, or, at the end of the day, you're like, oh, I took control. Oh, I asked a question that was really leading from something that was in my mind. It's okay. But let's be real with ourselves. And let's not say, you know what, I guess that just didn't work for that conversation. I guess solution-focused approach didn't work. Let's do better and coach ourselves first and say, is there something that I could have done about my mindset and where I was in that moment, something I can shift that can make a difference? All right. And that makes me think about how you could take notes right here and now. When I was at a conference a while back, someone said, don't write down everything I say. Write down what you think about as I'm saying it. And I thought, whoa, that's different. And it kind of rung true to the way that we just talked about how we do solution focused notes. We are thinking about the other person. But if we're thinking about our own dialogue and our thoughts and what insights we come up with, we write different notes. Then something about maybe something I say will spark a correlation between your work and the things that you do. And that is what you should write down when you're taking these notes, not the actual things that I'm saying. And I'm trying something new today. I may never do it again. I'm not using any slides. I thought I just want to see if I could just be here with you. And maybe that would be some of the power of being online, that it's kind of like I'm right there in your living room or office or wherever you're at, rather than having that barrier of a slide. Um, maybe I'll say, nah, we need the slides next time. Didn't work out. It's a long time to talk for with no slides, but you know what? You guys are gonna be here with me. We'll see how this goes. Um, and I want to do that because I would rather us listen to our own thoughts and the dialogue that we have, and prepare our minds for the things that we're even going to hear in the next few sessions, rather than be thinking about the nuts and bolts of what I'm saying. Oh, I got to remember that. Oh, I got to remember that. She said that. Let's just free ourselves of that. Let's just free ourselves from all of this. I got to remember, this is too much. I'm shoving it in my brain. And just say, you know what? I'm going to remember what I should remember out of this. And if there's a moment and it sparks that amazing creativity or a moment of hope within you, write it down. We're going to have questions and we're going to chat at the end, and we can talk about it, and we can glean off each other of how that insight can grow right in that very moment. Okay. So hopefully that's okay with all of you. Okay. And, and, and also, this is a kind of a new thing for you to talk about. I've been writing about it because it's chapter 2 of my book that I'm writing. So if I seem like I'm not flowing perfectly, it's because this is kind of like something that's been written in my chapter 2, but not exactly talked about. So it's kind of new for me to teach about it. So let's talk first about alignment. Keeping the analogy of a car is, have you ever driven a car that's out of alignment? I have. When you do, it just veers off in its own little direction the moment you take your hands off the wheel. It's like, forget about it. Bye bye. And you end up having to grip that wheel with everything in you, depending on how bad the alignment is, in order to keep that sucker on track. And at best, you're thinking about the wheel and keeping it on track. At worst, you completely go off course. And that's what happens with our conversations when they're out of alignment. We feel as though we need to grip the wheel tightly and keep our conversation on course. And that usually happens because we failed to establish rapport. We failed to do the very, very, very first part of connection, because we can do all the preparation in the world. But if we are not aligned, giving what we want to give in the very first moments of meeting a person, and authentically showing ourselves and then looking at them and seeing them, if we don't do that in that very first moment, our alignment can be way off. We can even accidentally give a completely wrong message because we're nervous about, is the time going by, or are they going to take this the way I want to take this, or we have this dialogue going up inside of our mind that doesn't allow us to stop and say, I need to be aligned right now. Alignment is when your body, your voice tone, your facial expressions, your attitude, they all send the same message. When everything is in sync, and they're in sync with your intention. And research backs this up, that when talking to people that go to therapy, they are more likely to have lasting, this is according to, the Journal of Counseling Psychology recently put out a study that people are more likely to follow through if everything about the person is congruent, and then that allows us to have trust. So that's why in solution-focused conversations, it's not good enough just to have a bunch of good questions. It's not good enough just to show up with those questions and they're all memorized and be listening for the right question to ask. It's about how you show up for those questions. And the way you lead the conversation is so much more important than the specific words that you say. And I have a story about that. I recently had a brand new counselor that was so excited about learning the approach, and she would talk to me about it so exuberantly and ask me questions. And one time she called a completely different vibe. She was all upset. And she said, "You know what? This just isn't working because the kids don't seem to take me seriously. And all of my conversations, they just fall flat." And I asked her if I could come observe her. And so I did. And she was a middle school counselor, one of the most fun group of people to work with, those middle schoolers. And so I observed her. And when the students walked in, I noticed that she barely looked up from her table. And it was a group of 3 kids. And when they walked in, she just kind of like nudged, said, "Come on, sit down." Didn't have eye contact. In fact, she was just reading her notes and reflecting on her computer. It wasn't like she was cold, but it just wasn't inviting. And she was sitting back in her chair a little. And I noticed this. She didn't notice. It was subtle. And if you hadn't talked to her before, you might think, well, this is her personality. This is the way she counsels. This is her vibe. But I had talked to her before, and I knew she had a curious and engaged side, and that genuine attitude was failing to come through. So what happened next? Well, the students mirrored that energy. The students, they sat back in their chair and they made short answers, and they basically followed that suit. And it was I'm going to I want to get rid of this background, but oh well, I have all this other stuff going on in my mind. This background's bugging me, but um, they followed suit. They decided to mirror her. And so afterwards, I asked her I did some solution focused coaching right then and there. I asked her, what were you thinking the moment before those kids walked in? And she said, "Oh, I was thinking I want to ask the questions. I was reading through the questions. I don't want to mess anything up." And then I said, "Well, just out of curiosity, what emotion do you hope your students get the moment that they walk in your room?" And it didn't take her long to answer. She said, "I want to feel warmth, openness, like I'm ready to listen." And I said, "What if you thought about that hope as they walked in? What difference do you think it would make?" And I could see her face shift, like turning on a light. She realized that her energy had been focused on the mechanics and not the connection. And it clicked. And we talked about what it meant to be in alignment, to let your voice, your body, your presence reflect the energy that you want your clients to experience. So for us, instead of focusing on you and what you want to say, what you want to accomplish, shift it and think about the connection between the other person, even if you've never met them yet. Doesn't matter. Ask yourself, what emotion would I like them to experience? What outcome am I hoping to invite from this conversation? And Andrea did some self-coaching before her next counseling session. And she practiced sitting forward, making eye contact. She thought deliberately about what the attitude that she wanted actually looks like to the other people. And it was only a few days, and I got a text from her. And she goes, "It's working. The kids are they're engaged. They're asking me questions. My conversations are alive." And all I could do was smile. But she's the one that did the work, the adjustments, right? The adjustments in the moment. It wasn't because she found better questions. It was because she became fully present. And it's the way she asked them. She led with alignment. So this is what allows the solution-focused conversations to create lasting change. When someone feels emotionally safe, they feel a sense of genuine coming from you. You're open, you're willing, They want to be in the moment with you because you're in the moment with them. And that's the way that we really truly should be desiring to show up as solution focused practitioners, having solution focused conversations. This can happen in any conversation where we take a moment to say, how do I want to show up right now? And it doesn't even take a long time either. Some approaches take 2 or 3 sessions to build trust and to build the relationship, and we don't have that kind of time. And that doesn't really fall in line with how we do solution focused anyway, right? We want to get to what their best hopes are and move forward to the actions that they plan on taking. And establishing trust is a must. And this is how we assure that we can do it. I've learned that when I approach conversations with intention, I get to trust much quicker. And this contributes to how we discover their best hopes because they're more willing to be in that moment, like I just mentioned with you. And, even if they are stuck in a place where they want to give problem talk, sometimes if we're out of alignment, if we're trying to move them along in the conversation, it can come across to them as dismissive, or if we're not careful, like we don't care about the moment that they're in. It's not our intention, but it can happen when we are out of alignment. But if we fix the alignment first and they trust that we're in this together, they get that feeling of rapport, then they are more willing to follow your lead as you kind of like take that leadership role of asking a question that takes them into a new place that they haven't been before inside their own brain. And also keep in mind, please, that transformation in somebody doesn't happen in front of you. Maybe the aha moment does, the feeling of hope that overwhelms them. But the transformation happens when they leave and they're on their own. And they are the ones that making it happen, that reflecting, they're carrying their insight with them, and then they begin to act on it. And that's why how we lead matters so much, because the tone, the posture, the emotion that we have, that is what's going to stay with them. That's the thing that's going to make them think, okay, all right, I got something out of that, and I really want to try this new way of thinking. So ask yourself, am I aligned with what my best hope is for what the other person might feel and get out of this, out of my appointments, out of my conversations? Does my tone match my words? Does my body support my intent? Because when you lead with alignment, your questions will come alive. You won't even have to try. You'll probably even think of solution-focused questions that are so aligned with them and exactly where they're at, that you don't even have them memorized. They come from you because it becomes a part of who you are. And really the person in front of you comes alive too. And that's the thing that's most beautiful. Okay, now we're going to talk about, we're almost getting to the point where we're going to do an activity together to kind of help you choose your attitude, like we talked about at the beginning. Some people want to have the attitude of love, curiosity, openness, the things that you guys wrote down. Everyone has some go-to attitudes that they love and attitudes that they wish they had. But early in my career, I learned this. This was like, I've done solution focus for about 10 years. I've been a counselor for 20. So this was like one of my first jobs. I got hired in a temporary position, and the district office brought me in and they said, hey, this principal has a reputation. She does not, that we've gone through like 4 or 5 counselors with this lady. She doesn't appreciate counseling. She doesn't even think it works. Don't expect much, basically. And I was happy that they told me that, so I wasn't shocked. But then they didn't know me very well. I looked at that as a challenge. I was like, okay, I think this is a challenge. I need this person to like me. That's what I need. It's going to be important. And what I did was I just started researching everything I could about how to make a connection and how to do that quickly. And I came across the work. I don't know if you guys are aware of Nicholas Bootman's work. He wrote a book called How to Make People Like You in 90 Seconds or Less. And that was like, hey, that's it. That's what I need right there. I read it cover to cover, and it taught me a lot, actually, of the things I still use to this day. But one thing that it really, really taught me is that I need to choose a useful attitude. And I need to choose that useful attitude before I even meet or go into the conversation. And the word useful is the most powerful word there because we can have lots of attitudes. The thing that comes natural to you might not be the most useful in the moment for you to access. So if curiosity, for instance, like Joanna, is something that you're like, curiosity is the one that just leads the way for me. Use it and use it often. But sometimes that's not the most useful quality for you to bring to the table. Sometimes you need to access another one that you know well, that you've practiced, and that you can shoot out whenever you need it. Attitudes are, we all have different sides of us and different versions of who we are. And it's up to us to choose which attitude we bring to the table in each situation. And in this situation, I was told this principal, they don't like counselors. And after reading that, I decided to find out what this principal's strengths were. And I found out that teachers loved working for this principal. She may not have liked counselors, but teachers loved being there because she was bold, she was direct, and she was very decisive, and they loved it. So what I decided to do is take on an attitude that would be most useful in a situation with her. See, I know that a lot of counselors, we automatically might take on an attitude of what? Kindness, maybe curiosity, maybe warmth, right? These are things that a lot of time counselors do, but with a bold personality like that, that might come across as that I'm weak. And I chose a different attitude. I chose that I was going to be also curious, but I was going to be deliberate and I was going to be confident and I was going to be decisive. And bringing that changed my posture, changed how I approached the conversation, first to lean forward, first to the handshake, first to the eye contact. And I noticed that things were a little different. And we started developing a good working relationship. And, she wrote a really great reference letter for me that ended up helping me get the permanent position. And that always stuck with me to think it was nothing more than subtle changes in how I approached that allowed that conversation to go better in every conversation that we had. Does that mean that I wasn't authentically myself? Of course, I was authentically myself. Of course, I brought to the table what needed to be there as far as a counselor, but I led with an attitude that I chose, a useful attitude. And when we think about the attitudes that you guys put in the chat, there's lots of reasons people have attitudes. I think the majority of the people, us, we don't really think about the attitude we're bringing to the table. We just kind of are who we are. And hey, I'm authentically who I am. They like me, they hate me. That's the way it goes. And I mean, that's kind of going to happen anyway, because you can't change who you are. In essence, you're going to exude the person that you are. But I think that, like I mentioned earlier, what about the different versions of who we are? I don't think many of us often question if we're bringing a version to the table that's the most helpful. Are we bringing a version that rings true to our values really? Have we taken a moment to think about what we value in the very next moment that we're in, which could be different than what we value over the weekend when we went to a party or something? And then bring that value through your attitude. I don't think many people do that. So why can't we be proactive in this manner more often instead of reactive and choose the attitude we bring with us? If we take it a little deeper, lots of you guys might think about this as well, that most people shape their attitude around what they're trying to avoid. They think, I don't want this person to shut down, or I don't want them to get frustrated, or I don't want this to go poorly, or like that counselor that I was talking to, I don't want to forget anything. And that changes our posture. Instead of thinking about you're thinking about you. Basically, you're completely self-centered and you don't even realize it. And what that does is not only are you thinking about what you shouldn't be doing rather than what you should be doing, but you're also thinking about you instead of the impact that you would like to make. As counselors and therapists and solution-focused experts out there, we probably all feel very comfortable asking another person, what do you want? What are you hoping for this conversation? But how often do we ask ourselves that? We should be very comfortable asking ourselves that question, and we should ask it often. I asked myself that question when I met that principal, and it allowed things to go very differently. It allowed things to shift in a direction that I didn't even expect. I was just hoping that maybe she wouldn't, badmouth me to the district and allow me not to get, but to write that letter showed me that, man, people really do like people like themselves. And sometimes we do need to take a moment to mirror and be in the moment with them in order, like I said, to then lead the conversation in a different type of way. And, you know, I don't know how this is resonating with you. If it is, I know that it definitely has helped me a lot along the way. Every step of the way of my counseling, it's helped me so much when I get myself rooted in what is my alignment. Is my body saying the same thing that I want it to say? If it's not, why? What attitude am I bringing to the table right now? And in a minute, we're going to practice that. So if you do have notes, you're going to write down several attitudes, not only the attitude that you just put there, but also a few other attitudes. So you can jot that down while I tell this next little story. Maybe a handful, like 5 attitudes, 3 to 5. Because, for our activity, you might want to choose one that's super easy because, here we are trying to do it together. But challenge yourself maybe. Maybe you should take on an attitude that you don't normally take on and see if you can bring that up within you and have it be authentically shining through you. But I want to talk a little bit about the subtext of the things we're thinking about in our head while we're talking. Okay. I learned about this when I hired a performance coach to help me with the TED Talk that I did. And I really, at that time, was like, I'm moving more into speaking now. I'm being asked to speak, and now I'm being asked to speak on the stage, the TED stage, like, and so the most valuable thing that they shared with me is that we always are having dialogue in our brain while we're talking. I've thought about, oh, is it recording? Do I need to move the camera? Just all that dialogue that we have going on. And she said, pay attention to that dialogue. And not only that, but choose the dialogue that you want to have. Don't just write a script of what you want to say on the TED stage, but alongside of it, she had me write all along down the side of my script what I was hoping that the audience would be able to glean from each and every part. We literally took each and every part, and she said, so what do you want them to get out of this part? What do you want them to get out of that part? If you had your way, what are you trying to portray? And it completely changed. And I had to memorize it, but then I wasn't saying the speech. I was giving to them what truly, truly I wanted. It was authentic, because what she said is that it doesn't matter what you say to people. Your dialogue will come through louder than what you say. So us as people that sit right in front of people face to face or on camera, whenever we do, even in the most brief conversation in a hallway, that could make or break whether they ever trust you again based on that moment. So it's important that your dialogue is exactly in line with the type of person that you want to be. So that's what's shown. We even came up with an entire dialogue at one point where I, in my mind, was thinking about how they were opening a gift and that I was about to share that gift, but not yet, because it wasn't time. It was like a slow open of a gift, and it's a slow thing. And these word pictures are something that can help your mindset big time, like that driving of the car. Recently, in one of the other workshops today, someone was talking about how it's like you're rowing a boat together when you're in a solution-focused conversation. Both people are rowing, but sometimes one person's rowing to go one way, and you're doing that together. These are just amazing things that we can decide beforehand, so our mindset is ready and prepared to be a solution-focused person that's ready to focus on them. And it's amazing when we're able to free ourselves of a dialogue that's self-centered. It's hard to do. It's hard because we are thinking about like the things we want things to do. But when we can, and there's that freeing moment where you're just 100% locked in. Have you guys had that moment where you're like, "Oh, I can just see that they're getting something from this." And it's a really a magical type thing that happens. And that's why I want each and every one of us to move beyond just asking the questions, move beyond just having a conversation and saying, well, I'm going to use some of the solution focused skills that I know, put on the solution focused hat. Um, Man, if we can get away from that and just think every conversation has an opportunity to be a coaching conversation, every conversation has an opportunity to use solution focused attributes. And so I don't know what attitudes you guys wrote down. Remember, an attitude is just an emotion that shows all over your body, whatever that emotion is that you're already having. Take a minute to write that down. And then what we're going to do before we ask questions is we're going to practice having that authentic attitude just flow out of you. All right. So choose one of these attitudes that you just wrote down on a paper. Could be an easy one, could be a hard one. It's totally up to you. And then what you're going to do is just think about a time when you had that attitude authentically. Just quiet your mind and allow yourself to remember a time that you felt that feeling all over your body. Where were you? What were you doing? What kind of weather was it outside? Were you inside? Were you outside? Try in your mind's eye to make it as vivid as you possibly can. Notice the colors, the sounds, the feelings in your body, and let the emotion just flood all over you. That emotion that you're choosing, that you want that attitude to come out of you. Then breathe in, breathe out. And then when you come to presence, let that emotion just shoot out of you, straight towards the screen, straight towards the mirror. If you're practicing it, wherever you're practicing, just let it shoot out straight towards your heart. And feel it moving out of you, just as real as if you had like a water faucet just coming straight out with that emotions towards the other person, heart to heart. And then bring it back. And let's do that again. Close your eyes and think of that exact same emotion, or just soften your gaze. And this time, make that emotion brighter within you. Make that attitude bigger, stronger. What do you expect the other person would be thinking and acting and seeing when you have this attitude? What do you expect will be the results of you having that attitude? And what are they going to give back to you when you do? And then feel it again. Feel it in your hands, your body, all over you, that emotion that you want to come out in your attitude. And then open your eyes again and let it out even more. You can sit in front of the mirror and practice. And let me tell you, right there, you just became in alignment with that emotion. Your body, everything is saying the same thing because it's yours. And it's something that we can and should control in our conversations. And it belongs to you, and you gave it to them. And it can change in an instant. You meet someone, you're like, oh, you know what? Their energy is very different. I need to adjust this. And if you have a handful of 5 different attitudes that you've practiced in this way, then you're going to be able to authentically access it just like that in any solution-focused conversation, any conversation at all, really. It will help us with life all the way around. But it'll help you be in sync with that emotion and not send a mixed message and not make the mistake of missing out. Because what happens is people sense that and then they don't tell you the real hope they have. They tell you a version of that hope. But we want to be able to say, what else, and be able to bring that out in them in an authentic way. And that starts with the attitude that we bring to the table. Alignment, attitude, and just really being aware of the other person more than yourself. That's what this is all about. So you know what? anybody have any questions? Let's talk about this. What did this bring up in you? Did anybody have any insights that they came up with or questions they have for me that we could talk about?
Cher, I have my mom is 95, and at times I have a little bit of a challenge because she has dementia, and I'm not always sure, what she needs from me when I go visit her. And so this sounds like something I could do when I'm sitting in the car and driving up to the assisted living where she lives and think, okay, how do I hope this goes? And what do I need to be thinking about? And how do I want myself to come across? So that would be very helpful to me using these ideas. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. I mean, I kind of think that we never know when these things are going to help us until we are in the moment. So when you're in the next moment that you're kind of like, oh, I'm walking into this situation, what's going to happen? We could kind of catch ourselves and be like, wait a minute, what do I hope to happen? It's really self-coaching, right? So the entire book that I'm writing is called Solution Focused Coaching, but a lot of it has to do with coaching ourselves. It's what we're doing to coach ourselves that actually allows us to be the person that we truly want to be. And how do we expect? Sometimes I wonder, like, how do we expect to be the kind of solution focused counselors that we train ourselves to be if we're not willing to also coach ourselves?
Yeah.
And also reach out and get coaching in community and listen to the things that will help us level up. These things are so important. Uh, it's stuff that we sometimes miss, and that's why I want to talk about it, because it's true. Like, actually, Linda and I've had this conversation. I didn't mention this, that a lot of people will ask me in trainings, they'll say, how do I do solution focused with this or that or the other? And the question is more like, well, do you have the mindset first and foremost? And if you do, then those questions will come. It'll be very similar questions. It will just be tailor made for them and who they are and the experience that they're in. I was in the Europe one. Someone was saying, oh, I can't believe this works so well in Asia, because I often wonder, what would I do if someone from an Asian country came into one of our countries? How would I use solution focus? And I thought, well, that's a very similar question that we get. It's the same. People are people. We're going to do it the same, because all of us can, we just like to be able to gravitate towards finding out what our strengths are and then doing more of it. That's something that all humans want to do. So, anyways, I know you guys see in my, we're coming to a close, but I know that you guys see on my little screen here that I tried to use. I don't know if I like it or not, but I do have my podcast. That's what it looks like if you want to look it up. And I also have all of the notes, because I know I didn't use slides, but I have the entire transcript that I'm going to give you of this talk, as well as this whole one sheet of notes. And you can get that by going to bit.ly/SF capital by and then C capital CHER. It's right there. Or just email me, just anytime. Anyone can email me, and I could talk to you about whatever's on your mind. So that's how to get a hold of me right there. And it's true. I'd like all of you to go listen to the TED Talk, because, it's really cool when we can all join together that way and listen to great talks of thinking minds and all that. But does anyone else have anything else, any comments they want to talk about? Any questions for me? We're going to make it to the end of this.
Just wanted to say thank you. It was really, really valuable. Thank you. I work in healthcare, and I want to apply these principles to help dentists such as myself. I'm a therapist as well, helping with their clients, that interaction, reduce burnout. Yeah. Maybe connect with you afterwards.
People are nervous when they go to the dentist, right? They need someone. They need you to trust them right off the bat.
Do. And it makes the dentist's life easier too if they've got the right mindset.
Oh my gosh, good luck. Yeah, that's a work. That's a work that's needed right there.
I'd love to connect with you later.
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, I mean, jot down my email, just, and shoot me a quick email, and that's what this is all about.
Yeah.
And I also have the full-on training with all the questions and all of the, so here's one of the cards that I can't even see it with this stupid background, but the cards that I use in my training, I mean, I got all that. But to me,
Yeah.
I don't know, I just felt it. I want to talk about the mindset. Let's just do this. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyone else want to talk? We have a few more minutes. Who else wants to talk? Anyone else have anything on their mind?
Thank you, Cher. I came in a little late and I missed the first part, so it was very good. Thank you. I just wanted to ask a quick question. What what do you perhaps do when you find you're slipping out of that attitude with a client? If you're portraying a caring counselor and you find yourself slipping out of it, how do you bring yourself back?
I actually had that in one of my notes and we didn't talk about. So you're reading my mind right now. Um, I feel as though we're all a work in, well, we are. We're all a work in progress. So it's going to happen that this is challenging sometimes. It's going to happen that it's a lot harder than you thought to stay in that moment and stay 100% present. And you'll slip back into feeling as though I answered too much for them, or even if your attitude didn't completely switch to like rude, you just kind of weren't being solution focused. And in those moments, I find the most important thing for us to do is have grace on ourselves. Because if we begin to beat ourselves up mentally, that will be sensed to the other person and it throws everything off. So it's even best if we just say, you know what, can we take a minute right now and let me stop? I have a different type of question that I want to ask you right now, but I just need to take a minute. And they will respect that because you're being human, right? I recently had a situation with a sixth grade student and I made this mistake. I offered a suggestion that they might do. And to me, it seemed like a very obvious suggestion that they should do on the playground. Well, maybe you should, I don't, it wasn't this, but I'll use this. Well, if you're having a struggle with your friend, maybe you should play with somebody else. It wasn't that, but something similar. Let's use that as an example. And I offered that. And I knew when it came out of my mouth that I'm like, why did I just offer that? There's no reason for me to offer a solution right now. He's thinking about it. And he just kind of made this face like a weird face. And so what I did was I said, you know what? That was something I just came up with. But I forget what I came up with. I'm really more interested in what you might come up with. So what do you think you should do? And I just stopped right there and pivoted and called myself out on what I just did and then moved towards the highlight of where I really wanted to be. And sometimes, to be honest, we're going to screw up. The person's going to walk away and we're going to feel they're not going to know it, but we're going to know it because we kind of knew the direction that we should have gone. And just have grace on yourself and be like, you know what? I'm going to trust that they got what they needed to for what I could do. And I'm going to regroup and do it differently next time. And there's times when that happens too. And it's okay. There's times when it pivots. The only thing is, I had said this at the beginning, I think before you came, is that I don't think that we should give ourselves the excuse of saying, well, I guess I just stopped using the solution focused approach. It wasn't appropriate for that time. Don't be so quick to move to that because it's okay for us to shine a little light on ourselves and then do some self coaching and say, okay. But if it was a conversation that could have been better for solution focus, what would have I done differently? What would have somebody else done differently in this conference? What do I imagine they would have done? What different question could I craft? And don't spend any time beating yourself up, but just fine tune, you know? In the moment, though, I found the best way for me is that I just shed a light on what I'm doing and be like, you know what? I want to turn a corner right here. If it's all right with you, I need to take a minute. And I just breathe, and then I just say, okay, all right, I'm reset. Let's ask a different type of question. See if that, I don't know. I mean, have you ever been in that situation and then you have been able to turn it around?
Yes, I have. It's something that I worked on quite consciously when I first started counselling because I'd been a teacher for 30 years. So I guess the risk is that you will impose the solution on the client, and I've done that. And so
I think we all have.
I'm not sure that I pivoted as nicely as you explained then, but you're aware of it.
Yeah.
And you have to sort of, I guess, reset a little bit.
Yeah, it was interesting because even in that moment, I was so glad it was happening that way that I screwed up, because then I did stop and wait for all the long pauses that sometimes our students have. And he came up with an idea that I would have never thought of. I don't remember what it was, but I remember going like, huh, by golly, that just might work, you know? And I loved it. I was like, I am so glad I caught myself. I would have never been able to hear that amazing little insight that he came up with. So, so I think that in this conversation of preparation, the way we can prepare for that is conversations like this. We know it's going to happen. We know our mind is going to try and sabotage us because we're all very great at solving problems and love helping. So our mind is going to be like, yeah, this is what they should do. And it's a lot faster to do that. Like, I think I should just tell them. That usually happens most with me when I'm in a hurry. And I hate that. But if I'm in a hurry, I so want to give up on my mind. I give up on myself and be like, okay, why don't you just do this and get back to me? Like, but no, we can't do that. Even in a short conversation, it's better if we say, you know what, why don't you give that some thought and get back to me? I know this day at recess or this day, if that happens, can you please just pay careful attention to what happens and report back to me and see if you think of anything differently. See if anything else works, anything you haven't tried. Even that didn't take any longer than me giving advice is better than giving advice if we want to be solution focused. So,
I guess
yeah.
I had a bit of a different take on Rhonda's question about not being if you find yourself sliding out of, say, your attitude of curiosity, is that being authentic is sometimes we lose focus. And, I see 7 or 8 people in a day, and by the end of the day, I'm tired. And that's just, I work for an agency, and I don't have control over the number of people I see in a day. That's it's dependent on the number of hours I work in a day. They schedule I don't have control over that. So I am tired. And and it's not possible for me to maintain an attitude of curiosity for a 55-minute session. I can't do it.
And nor should you. That's
Yeah.
why I feel honestly that authenticity means that we have that's why I love that useful attitude. That's why I love the word useful so much, because it frees us from being like, no, I'm supposed to be curious. I'm supposed to be this. Really, the most useful attitude for that moment is going to be an authentic attitude. And sometimes we need to say, man, I am tired right now. How about you? Whew, it's been a day. And so when they're going to sense that from you anyway. I don't know if I even explained this right. Like I said, it's the first time I've really done this outside of my writing, but they're going to sense that you're tired anyway. So if you act super curious and they're like, well, I don't know if I really trust this woman because she seems really tired, but she's also trying to be curious, like, what's up here, right? So choose the useful attitude for that next client. The last client of the day that gets something different does not mean you're doing something wrong. It means that you're saying, you know what, on this one, I really just hope to be the best listener I can. I want to be a listening attitude, but curiosity, I don't know. I think it'll come along the way. We'll see. That's the dialogue we have with ourselves, because we can't keep that up. I mean, our energy runs out, our perspective changes, the person in front of us will trigger us, and then we're like, calm attitude, like things like that.
Well, though, I also want to be careful about sharing with a client that I'm tired, because that often will drop people into wanting to caretake me.
Oh my gosh,
which I don't want to have happen. So I'm reluctant to own up if I'm not going to go down that road very far.
No,
If they
you're
notice that
right.
I'm tired, I'll just say, and it's 4 o'clock. It's been a day, and then I just move it along.
That's a good idea. So you're
So
still being authentic. You don't have to say what attitude you're giving anyways. It's really none of their business. But
right.
it's like, that's a good point, where it's like part of it is who are you in front of, and that might not even be appropriate to say. But you could say, I'm owning the fact that I might be a little tired right now. And what am I going to
And you
do
should schedule at 9 in the morning.
in that moment? Yeah. And maybe it's on me for having a 4 o'clock appointment with someone that's very challenging. Normally. Anyways, this has been so awesome, you guys. I wish we could we'll continue these talks. I'm going to be in some of from here on out, I'm going to be fully engaged. The last one I was focusing on getting ready for this talk, but anyways, it's been great. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, each and every one of you, for being here. Please email me. Let's connect. Let's stay in contact. And if you're ever by Southern California, that's where I am. All right.
Thank you very
Bye-bye.
much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.